now is hung with bloom along the brow, and stands about the woodland ride, wearing white for Eastertide. Now of my 80 years and 20 will not come again, and take from 70 springs a score, it only leaves me 50 more. And since to look at things in bloom, 50 springs a little room, about the woodlands I will go to see the cherry hung with snow.
Good morning again. My name is Heidi McLennan, and I'll be leading today's service. Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting our message this morning. Our words of welcome are from the Reverend Kimberly Ann Tomchuk Carlson. It is not by chance that you have arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone has nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so, you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Welcome to worship. And so I just want to say welcome with you live from Fellowship Hall. It's the LCUUF Sunday service. Our announcements were on a slideshow before the service. If you didn't see them, don't worry. They were sent out with the order of service on Saturday. A few notes. Our building is now open to all. We will continue to offer our service on Zoom for the benefit of those who are unable to attend in person. We ask people here to continue to wear masks. Mine's right here when I need it, so that we prevent the spread of COVID infections. And now, a special welcome to our visitors. If you are visiting with us for the first time, or have returned or reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise your hand feature, or just turn your video on and wave your hand, and I'll ask you to unmute. If you're in the room, just raise your hands. We'll start with the people in the room. Anybody here new or been away for a while? No? Now, let's switch to those on Zoom. Is there anyone new with us on Zoom?
Yes, we have
Nobody?
Rusty. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from? You're muted, Rusty.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so my real name is Rosalinda Castillo. My nickname's Rusty, and I'm from Chicago, and I'm new to the area. Arrived on April the 7th.
Oh.
I tried to join you guys last week, but with the technical difficulties, I wasn't able to. So this is my very first.
So glad you came back.
Thank you.
Our chalice lighting words are by Jennifer McLennan. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil. Let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays and ready to emerge with a new energy, ready to face the day. We light this chalice to bring a glimmer of that warmth into our space. Now let us light our chalices.
We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
Our hymn is "Oh, Give Us Pleasure in the Flower" today. Please rise if you're able and join us in the singing.
Oh, give us pleasure in the flowers today, and give us not to think so far away, as the uncertain harvest keeps us here, all simply in the springing of the year. Oh, give us pleasure in the orchard white. Now nothing else by daylight goes by night, and make us happy in the happy breeze, the swan dilating round the perfect trees, and make us happy in the darting bird that suddenly above the bees is heard, the meteor that trusts in with needle bill, and off a blossom in midair stand still. For this is love, and nothing else is love, to which it is reserved for God above, to sanctify, to add for ends He will, but with it only needs that we fulfill.
Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. We do this by sharing significant joys or sorrows. Totally lost me there. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share today, you can type it into the chat now, and we'll read those aloud. First, let us voice our sorrows or concerns or whatever you are in the... We any joys? All right. Pardon? Sorrows. Any sorrows? Sorry, any sorrows? That's wonderful. How about Zoom? Anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we have a few. From Caitlin Jenny, who's the daughter of Claire and Hugh Jenny. She says, my sweet 82-year-old mama continues to amaze me. She was diagnosed in the fall with ALS, which starts in the throat. It stole her voice and her ability to eat and drink by mouth, but it can't steal her grit, smart spirit, or sense of humor. Last Monday night, she suffered a mild heart attack, followed by AFib, along with pneumonia, and yet she continues to fight the good fight in the ICU, sending cheerful, witty email updates to friends and family near and far. We're hopeful she'll move to the cardiac floor soon, but in the meantime, feel free to send Claire an email or Facebook message to cheer her. Her devoted dad, Hugh, would also love your encouragement and support. From Liz Mulder, she has an ongoing concern for the brave people of Ukraine who are fighting for their freedom, including the many victims of this unprovoked war. And from me, I'd just like to say we're grateful Bill White is with us. He had a fall and a tear of his AC shoulder joint. Best wishes for a speedy recovery, Bill. We know these things take time and patience. And I think that's all.
Now let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others, you are welcome to type joys in the chat box. Again, we'll start with the folks here. Are there any joys?
Actually have 3 joys today. Number 1, our daughter Valerie. Her husband Martin graduates from Police Academy next Saturday. And the following Saturday, our granddaughter, their daughter, graduates from college with a double degree in criminal justice and psychology. And their son, Blaine, who many of you I think have met when he's been here visiting, he and his girlfriend, and I never even knew this was a thing, the cruise ships hire people to clean their HVAC systems. And he and his girlfriend are on their first trip out. They're starting up in Portland and going to to Vancouver. But they're hoping that, like their friends, they'll be stationed in the Mediterranean. So they're very excited.
Hi, I'm Paula Odom from membership, and I just want to let everyone know we have 3 folks that are going to sign the membership book today, and if you guys would stand up, Garrett Browning, Devorah Kelly, and Christina Reynolds. Welcome.
Anyone else? Devorah? That one?
So I thought I'm Devorah Kelly, and I thought I had 2, but I guess I have 3. I'm filled with joy that I'm finally getting to sign the book, but I was going to do it last fall, and I broke my ankle and didn't get here. But my other joys, my son, his wife, and my 10-year-old grandson were here for a week. So they fell in love with with Ahihic, and so I know they'll be back. And my other joy, I think I had mentioned last time I was here, which was in March, that I was moving my mom here. She'll be 99 in July. 3 weeks ago today, we flew from Orlando, and she's at one of Alicia's nursing homes. And she says to me every day, because she has short-term memory issues, so she says it every day, which is good, that she could choose to be miserable because she's away from her family, her friends and her cat, but she's choosing to be happy. And I'm just so proud of her, and I'm very relieved that she's made a good transition. So filled with joy for family and LCUUF membership.
Anyone else? Are there any joys to be shared on Zoom?
I'm not seeing any, though I know people have joy.
I don't know. I should just say I've got so many joys today that they're too innumerable to mention. So, yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Francisco Ursua. My concern is because I worry for your health of Janice Kimball because she have problem with her hair and your kidneys. Thank you.
And this candle from our care team represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. So many of us have had losses, partners, children, grandchildren, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us have burdens, anger, fear, and frustration. All those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows.
Our meditation today begins with a reading by Reverend Carolyn S. Owen Toole. And I invite you to enter into this reading as a way to enter into meditation. See a blossom in your mind's eye. Allow it to fill the interior of your imagination. Greater perfection of form and nature cannot be imagined. With inward gaze, absorb each wondrous fluted petal. Slide down its humid surface until you drop as the dew into its velvety core. Immerse your senses into this safe chamber. Such fragile beauty gives impulse to weep. Slowly reverse the journey. As you ascend the shaft toward wider light, turn your imagination around and around to see its many facets. Stored within is the memory of all flowers. Marvel that this creation, while utterly fragile, yet undaunted, boldly buds forth, turning resolutely toward the sun. We too shimmer with expectation, exuding our own illumination, color, pulse, and scent. Vulnerable, still we venture our lives courageously towards hope and light, at once fragile and rooted. And now let us return to this time and place to be together again. Our first reading is from the Unitarian Universalist Association. It goes like this. The Unitarian Universalist Flower Communion service, which we are about to celebrate, was originated in 1923 by Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. On the last Sunday before the summer recess of the Unitarian Church in Prague, all the children and adults participated in this colorful ritual, which gives concrete expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our liberal faith. When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Čapek's gospel of the inherent worth and beauty of every human person to be, as a Nazi court records show, too dangerous for the Reich for him to be allowed to live. Dr. Čapek was sent to Dachau, where he was killed the next year. This gentle man suffered a cruel death, but his message of human hope and decency lives on through his flower communion, which is widely celebrated today. It is a noble and meaning-filled ritual which we are about to recreate. This service today concludes with the original prayer of Dr. Čapek to help us to remember the principles and dreams for which he died.
I forgot to do it for Matt. Our second reading today is by Angelina Weld Grimke, a Black poet who was part of the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s. It is titled, At the Spring Dawn. I watch the dawn come, watch the spring dawn come, and the red sun shoulders his way up through the gray, through the blue, through the lilac mists, the quiet of it, the goodness of it. And one bird awoke, sang, word, a blur of moving black against the sun, sang again, afar off. And I stretched my arms to the redness of the sun, stretched my fingertips, and I laughed. It's good to be alive, good to love at the dawn, at the spring dawn.
We Unitarian Universalists have relatively few rituals compared to, say, the Anglicans or the Jews. But we do have a few, and some of them are truly our own, such as the water service or the child dedications or this one, the flower communion. Now, admittedly, we do use rituals from other traditions. I've seen in our congregations, in addition to the traditional Christmas and Easter rituals, things like a pagan ritual involving jumping over a burning cauldron. And even here, we've celebrated Kwanzaa and done a New Year's burning bowl ritual drawn from pagan traditions. We've also celebrated Jewish high holy days with its numerous ritual components. And of course, Dia de los Muertos, one of our favorites from Catholic and indigenous origins. Now, some Unitarian Universalists are uncomfortable with such rituals. Some of us are uncomfortable with just any ritual at all. But without ritual, we risk becoming too dry, too heady, too wordy. In fact, Norbert Chopik created the flower communion ritual because he realized that his Sunday services in Prague needed to be more than a bunch of readings and a lecture, which is what most of them were. Now, others of us are uncomfortable with our use of rituals from other traditions. And I think this is a legitimate concern. We certainly should be careful about stealing or appropriating rituals that are not shared with us. We should also be careful about honoring the intent, the meaning of the ritual, and if we cannot do that, we should not use it. But oftentimes the owners of a ritual, the people of some other faith tradition that originally created it, have many varying understandings of the intent of the ritual, and they, or some of them, are willing to share it. Perhaps there may be an interpretation of the ritual that resonates for us as Unitarian Universalists, that resonates with our values. This was the case, for example, with that High Holy Day service that we held last year. It was quite a liberal variation of the Jewish tradition. And so I'm very happy when we're able to legitimately borrow rituals from other traditions and to use them in a way that fits with our own traditions. And in the same way, I am very happy when we can share our rituals with other traditions. I recall early days in seminary. I started at a liberal Methodist school. That school served a wide variety of mostly Christian faiths. Now, we Unitarian Universalists were a small minority in that school. I think there were 6 of us, but we were very much welcomed. Every year, we offered the flower communion ritual as one of the weekly chapel services. I learned that many of those other students at the seminary went on to serve churches in their own faiths and took the concept of the flower communion with them, offering it as a ritual in their own churches. Now, there is some confusion about the name of this ritual. Most Unitarian Universalists now call this flower communion, which brings up many images for many of Christian communion with the bread and the wine. Chopik himself preferred to use words like flower festival or flower celebration, since he had many ex-Catholics in his church, and he didn't want them to get confused about this ritual. I mean, there's no transubstantiation, and nobody's expected to eat anything, certainly not the flowers in this ritual. But I'm comfortable with the word communion. When you reach back to the Latin roots of that word, communio, we find this means sharing or the act of sharing. So I think we can rightfully call this ritual a flower communion, since it is an act of sharing flowers. But like any ritual, it symbolizes much more than just the exchange of flowers. As Chopik suggests, this sharing among us symbolizes each person's uniqueness, each person's dignity, the strength of our community built from our individual gifts. Rituals have ways of communicating without words. In the Zen Buddhist tradition, there is a story of the Buddha teaching his disciples, and instead of giving a sermon, he reaches into the muck of a nearby pond and pulls a lotus flower out and holds it up, saying nothing, just holding silence, holding this flower in silence. Now the disciples are confused and beginning to talk amongst themselves about the meaning of this flower, what it might symbolize, how does it fit into their other teaching, a lot of chatter, a lot of words. And one of the disciples, Mahachapya, said nothing. He simply smiled back at the Buddha. And the Buddha handed the lotus flower to Mahachapya and said to all the disciples, "What can be said, I have said to you, and what cannot be said, I have given to Mahachapya." Thus, Mahachapya understood the Buddha's wordless teaching and ultimately became the Buddha's successor in teaching. So let us now have our flower ritual. Okay, this is going to get kind of complicated. So first we're going to do folks on Zoom, and we have some folks that sent in flowers. And for the folks here, as you come forward to receive, well, let me back up. We're going to come over on this side, on your right side. I have to do this math in my head. And come around and take a flower. You can kind of choose, and then go back to your seats on this side. And while you're getting organized, kind of lining up over there or figuring out the flow, we don't really have ushers here, so we're not going to kind of like do it row by row or anything like that. We'll show the people on Zoom. Does that? Yeah, I'm good. I'm getting the good nods from the tech folks. We worked this out before, but I already forgot. So, and as you come forward to receive a flower, or as you offer up your flower on screen, or as you just observe the other flowers, notice the diversity of the forms of the flowers, and be reminded of the blessing of our diversity. Be reminded of the beauty that comes when we share the diverse qualities in nature that we have with each other. And so now let us have our flower communion ritual.
If you're on Zoom, please turn on your camera and hold up your flower.
It's a green flower.
Okay.
Diane, we can't see your face. There we go. Trying to get to everybody here. Oops, Lou, hold your flower up, Lou, or your garden. He's in his garden. Oh, here's. Thank you, Lou. Okay, I think I got everybody on Zoom.
And let us conclude the flower communion. Whenever Dr. Chapek conducted his flower communion in Prague, he would say these words as a blessing. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one with desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of one another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship. But may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. Amen, and blessed be.
This is the time in our service when we ask that you remember that we share our gifts here through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. For the people here at the fellowship, we'll pass a basket. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month, LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. For the month of May, we are supporting the Tepehua Centro Comunitario. This organization serves people in the Tepehua barrio of Chapela, one of the poorest barrios in the state of Jalisco. If you're not attending the fellowship in person, please donate to Share the Basket when you pay your pledge. Donate to Share the Basket separately or indicate what part of your donation is for the shared basket. The offering will now be given and received. Let us extinguish our chalices with these words, which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. Just before, I'm treading on Dr.
Chopik's words. Well, you could have read this. That's all right, but okay, our closing words. Just before he was murdered at Dachau, Dr. Chopik wrote this prayer, reflecting on his own life and the state of his spirit. Allow me to read this. It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow ye evil winds into my body's fire. My soul you'll never unravel. Even though disappointed 1,000 times or fallen in the fight and everything would worthless seem, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul. My life was worth living. He who was pressed from all sides, but remained victorious in spirit, is welcomed into the choir of heroes. He who overcame the fetters, giving wing to the mind, is entering into the golden age of the victorious. Amen.